I'm going to start by saying big thank you to Martin for coming this evening. And also, I hope that we're unique, really, at a time when Parliament has somewhat lost its reputation. We've had a little bit of chaos over the last few weeks. We are a unique example, actually, of Parliament at its best, because we are a coalition of backbench members of Parliament from right across the spectrum, literally right across the spectrum in both parties. I think Kevin will agree with me. And we've brought people together, working very closely with the NGO sector, to have a common ambition for what we seek to do over the coming period. So there are things to celebrate at the moment, even if you're feeling a little bit, what on earth is happening here at the heart of our democracy. I want to thank Transparency International UK, Spotlight, I haven't seen them, I'm sure Sue's, there we are, they're here, and RUSI for co-funding this with the two all-party groups. And it's great to see you all. We met last in the tranquility of Westminster Abbey 6 months ago, and I don't think any of us really saw at that point how chaotic it would be to get to the point where we are today to consider the bill. Tomorrow we're starting the process of considering the bill in the House of Commons, and this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, which is why we're all putting our heart and soul into it, to try and really turn around the tanker that has created the situation where Britain has become a jurisdiction of choice for too much dirty money across the world. It's a big problem, as you said. I always use the statistic of £290 billion, which is the best guesstimate, I'm sure it's much greater, of the amount that costs, and that's between a quarter to a third of total public expenditure, and that's the annual loss to the UK economy of economic crime. And it's got a human cost too. We always think about these big, crazy figures that we can't put our heads around, but it's the human cost, whether it's around people trafficking that results in it, drug smuggling, terrorism, or money laundering, all sorts of economic crime. And if you look at fraud, which is a big component, that has really reached epidemic levels now, 40% of total crime, and 1 in 11 adults is likely to be a victim of fraud, and that's only where the fraud is reported. So the real figure is bound to be bigger. And all this is happening at a time when war rages in Ukraine, and that has brought into focus, really, the role that Putin's people have played with the money that they have stolen from the Russian people in funding the war and in facilitating the aggression of Russia. And, I often reflect that it's sad that it took that war for us to focus, but we need to grasp that opportunity to try and put Britain back on the right road to being a trusted jurisdiction where people will choose to put their money and where people have faith in the honesty of the jurisdiction. That's how we'll grow the financial services sector. We'll never grow it on the back of dirty money. So I do welcome the bill. I'm doing something I haven't done for 20 years, which is go and sit on the committee of the bill. I used to do it as a minister, and then it was something that I decided I'd had enough of that, but this is so important that I am going to be a member of the committee on the bill. And I hope that the government will look kindly on some of the amendments that we put forward, because we were already developing some. There are some which are just technical, which I hope that we can agree will improve it. And on Companies House reform, we want to make sure that there aren't any loopholes in the new legislation that we create. We want to ensure that those tasked with providing the data are properly regulated and properly supervised. And we want to make sure that Companies House, despite that initial injection of money, is properly funded from its own resources so that it can carry out the task we give it. I often give this statistic. It costs £12 to establish a company in the UK today, and we want to open Britain to business. We want to make ourselves an open economy in that way, one that welcomes business formation, but put that alongside how much it costs to get a worker's visa. It costs £1,220 to do that, and that is a ridiculous anomaly, and I don't think a small increase in that cost to fund Companies House effectively would in any way stop legitimate businesses from funding themselves here. So the first thing is around making sure that's right. We want to, and I know Kevin feels passionately about this, we want to introduce a failure to prevent economic crime on those directors and companies who support it, the people that we call particularly the enablers, whether they're working in the accountancy, so it might be some of you here, banking, or in the legal or other advice things. And we think, Kevin talks about this very articulately, but we think this isn't to lock people up. It's to prevent crimes happening. It's to prevent money. It's the most effective and powerful preventative tool that we can think of. So we're very keen on that. We want to toughen up on the enforcement. It's no good us passing lots of legislation and it not being used. And I think that means making sure that the enforcement agencies are well and properly funded. It's making sure that the agencies provide proper supervision to those working in the financial services sector so that bad apples are eliminated and taken out of the system. And it's making sure that everybody is properly accountable to you through Parliament. And I think those are important things. And we want to also see, I've just picked out 4 issues, but we want to also see whether we can pass legislation in a tough area, but at the moment we freeze the assets of people, but we don't seize them. And we want to look at the examples that exist in jurisdictions like Italy, where they've had to deal with a mafia for decades, or in jurisdictions like Canada, where they're a little bit ahead of the game, or America, where they're looking at this, where the people who've been sanctioned will have their assets seized as well as frozen, and for us, so that can be repurposed to help in the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war is over. So I look forward to endless days and nights over the coming month on the bill. I then look forward to coming back to this house and going to your house, Martin, in hopefully before Christmas. And I just look forward to us working together at our best in Parliament to create a situation where our financial services sector can really prosper and grow and become the driver of growth, jobs and prosperity that we want without depending on dirty money. Thank you very much indeed.